having a lovely day. My name is Noah and I am here to show you my very first book haul on my channel. I am an avid book reader, but as you can see from my shelves, this one is my sister's actually and this one is mine. We did a huge KonMari situation and we got rid of so many books. I was going to do a unhaul, but I haven't bought books in quite a long time that they were all very old, not even young adult, like very elementary grade books, and I decided to just take them straight to the library. Anyway, I am here to show you part one of my book haul. I got quite a lot of books recently. The book haul from today is solely from Barnes & Noble. The very first book that I knew I had to pick out for this month at least was Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered, the definitive how-to guide by Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark. This is a dual memoir by Karen and Georgia, who created and host My Favorite Murder, which is my favorite podcast. I do still need to take off the sticker. It is the exclusive edition from Barnes & Noble, but I'm a little afraid of how it's going to turn out. I love this cover just even before I get into talking about the book. It's very matte and smooth, and even when I take the book jacket off, it says SSDGM, which if you're a #murderino, you'll know what that says. And even the inside is this artwork, very Victorian-like, and it says SSDGM on the inside as well. Of course, they're talking about their early life and their childhood and their life now, how they got into liking true crime and all the stuff in between. But while they do that, it is a definitive how-to guide, so they talk about personal safety and empowering yourself, and this also includes fan art, which I love. They continue to support their fans as well, which I think is really great. I'm really excited to read this book. They are both very funny people, and if you haven't heard, or I don't know how you haven't heard of My Favorite Murder, please give it a listen, especially if you are a true crime fan. They do have a podcast network right now called the Exactly Right Network, and they have other podcasts on there as well, so feel free to check those out. The next book I got is The Child by Fiona Barton. I was obviously on my trip to Barnes & Noble, but I did end up wanting to buy like at least 3 books, which is probably not good on the wallet, but here we are. This book I really just picked out because it is a mystery thriller, I think. Oh, psychological suspense and mystery crime thriller is one of my favorite genres that I love to read, so I knew that I had to pick this up. And also because it was on sale. It's originally $26 because it's a hardback, but it was selling for $5.98, so that also drew my eye towards it. Fiona Barton is a New York Times bestselling author for her first book, The Widow, but what I didn't realize is that this is actually a second book. It's like a series or a companion series, I don't really know. Point is, the books aren't really connected, but they do have a same character, main character, or common main character, but you don't actually need to have read the first one, The Widow, to read the second or the third one, but there is going to be some information about the character that won't be revealed in the second and third book. I think I still can give this book a try. This book is about a investigative journalist named Kate Waters, and she is reading the newspaper one day and she reads an article in which a tiny skeleton was found at the site of a demolished house in London. So she's intrigued as a journalist, obviously, and she wants to investigate what went on, and she gets closer and closer and she meets 3 different women who are related to this situation in which a baby was kidnapped from the hospital and was never found or returned. So in finding these 3 women, they reveal secrets to her and she kind of ends up being their keeper of secrets, but as a journalist she's kind of stuck between what she can tell and what she cannot tell. That sounds really interesting. As I said, I love a good mystery, and looks like I found a new author that I hopefully will enjoy for a really good price. The next author needs no introduction. This is The Shining by Stephen King. I actually have only read a handful of books by Stephen King, but obviously he writes a genre that I love very much, and out of the handful of books that I've read by him, I have enjoyed almost every single one of them. The one that I was kind of meh about, seemed kind of predictable, was Pet Sematary, but everything else I really love. You can't see it on my sister's shelf. I think it's on her favorites shelf all the way at the top, but we did very much enjoy that. This book, I actually didn't know it also has a sequel called Dr. Sleep, and there's an excerpt of it in this I just wanted to say that this type of paperback, first of all, books smell amazing. I love to smell them. I used to creepily like pretend I was people watching and just sniff the book in like elementary and middle school during like reading time in school. This is a super floppy paper book, which I love those kinds. It doesn't feel stiff and it just already feels relaxed, like it's your own. The Shining, I'm sure most of you know what this book is about or have seen the movie at least. It's about a man named Jack Torrance, and he's at a new job as the caretaker at the Overlook Hotel. He moves there with his family and he's there to focus on his writing and his writing. He's there to focus on his family and on his writing. So it's about winter time now. There's a huge storm that's brewing and everything starts to feel a little bit more quiet. Everything gets really dark really quickly in the winter time and everything just feels so much more isolated. So it starts to get a little creepy. Jack has a 5-year-old son named Danny, and he is actually the only one who starts to realize all these strange, creepy things that's going on in the hotel. But I don't really know what the sequel is about either. I haven't seen the movie, obviously. I hate scary movies, but somehow I love scary books. The only reason my sister and I went to go see it is to support it and because we really loved the book, but we were holding hands the whole time. We don't cover our eyes. We make sure to pay attention, but it gets really scary. I am excited to start another Stephen King novel. Okay, the last 3 books that I'm going to show you, these 3 books were for one trip to the library. I mean, the Barnes & Noble, I think that was trip 2 out of like 3 or 5 of this month. The next 3 are from a completely separate trip where I wasn't actually going to buy any books, but here we are. I got Lord of the Flies by William Golding. This book I think is really, really famous and a classic, but I was never intrigued in reading it because the other classes in my high school were reading this for English, and my class read 1984 by George Orwell, so it kind of felt too assignment-y and I didn't really want to read it. But this was, I think these are called like the mass market paperback editions because it's smaller than other books, and it was only $9.99. It was between this, Animal Farm, and Catch 22. They have printed the 50th anniversary edition because the Hulu show is coming out, which I still actually haven't watched, but that one was like $20, and I was like, I already have 1984, so I won't get Animal Farm, and somehow ended up with this $9.99 edition, Penguin Book Fiction edition of Lord of the Flies. If you don't know what this book is about it's sort of the dawn of the next world war is what it says on the back here. A plane crashes on an uncharted island and these young schoolboys are stuck on the island with no adults. So that kind of seems like total paradise for them. They have total freedom to do whatever the heck they want whenever they want to do it. When they start to create order, like some sort of civilization amongst themselves, it fails, and when it starts to fail, terror begins to reign. They hear howling at night, and that's where it all begins. That's all it says in here. Sounds really creepy. The book is surprisingly shorter than I thought it was because 1984 it was kind of thick. I think I still have it on here. It's definitely thicker than this one. Again, that seems like kind of like a creepy feel to it, which I love, and even Stephen King reviewed it, and that's on the back there, so I feel good about that. The next book is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, which I'm sure if you have seen any booktube video here on YouTube, you have heard of this book. If you haven't, you've been living under a rock, and this is somehow the very first booktube video you have seen. This book follows 2 boys, 2 young men actually, and this is a romance novel if you didn't know, and this is the very first male romance book that I've ever read, which I'm really excited about, especially even though it's towards the end of Pride Month. I still would love to get in that kind of representation and have that on my shelf here. So Alex, number 1, he's the American. His mother has become the president of the United States, so he, as the first son, becomes kind of the US's royalty. Then comes in Henry, who is the Prince of Wales, and Alex and Henry have some sort of beef. They don't like each other, and then the media actually catches some sort of scuffle, some word, something happens, a photograph is published, and things are not looking so good between the US and the UK. As a publicity stunt of sorts, Alex and Henry are made to become best friends and spend all their time together, but of course, as enemies spending way too much time together, they sort of create a romance. But the thing is, they are male, and they're from different states, so that might not rub people the right way, and sort of them finding romance in a situation that might not seem ideal. I've heard only good things about this book, so I'm really excited to read this. I don't usually buy books that I haven't read before, but you know. The last book that I got is The Rest of the Story by Sarah Dessen. This is also the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. I actually didn't know that Sarah Dessen's new book was coming out that day until I saw it on Naya Reads and Smiles Instagram, and I happened to be going to Barnes & Noble that day just to browse, but obviously I left with 3 books, and why I got the hardcover edition. A lot of the YouTubers who have been talking about this book said that they have never read any Sarah Dessen books, which I am so surprised about because she is all I read in middle school. I've read every single one of her books, I'm proud to say. You can see some of her books on here, and she's there on my shelf as well. My sister and I both love her. This book follows, oh, I didn't even look. Oh, it's just plain blue. This is also a very matte type cover, and I really like the lettering just in general. Love this. This book follows Emma Saylor, and her mother died when she was young, when she was about 12 years old, and she doesn't have very much memories of her mother. She ends up being sent away to spend the summer with her mother's family by North Lake, I think it was called. Yes. She gets there and she realizes that her mother and her father grew up on very, very different spectrums of the socio-economic ladder. Her mother grew up working class and her father was schmoozing it up at the country club. When she gets there, because of this socio-economic divide, she feels divided between her 2 identities, between her father and her mother's side. Her father calls her Emma, but her mother's family actually calls her Sailor. And then comes in Rue, who was her childhood best friend, and he is the key into unlocking all of her childhood memories because he lives at North Lake, and so he kind of knows everything that's going on with her family. And then there's a bit of a romance, as there are in all of Sarah Dessen's books, but I'm very excited to read her very new one. Every single book that I've read by her I've absolutely loved. This wasn't a good idea. This concludes my part 1 of my book haul. I've been spending most of my money on books this month. I think I've gone to Barnes & Noble way too many times. I had to restrain myself from buying any books at Strand Bookstore today. Make sure to keep an eye out for part 2 because I do have exciting books from there as well. I'm very excited to start to read these, and I will see you guys next time. Until then, happy reading. Bye!
Ah, Belle!
Good morning. I've come to return the book I borrowed.
Finished already?
Oh, I couldn't put it down. Have you got anything new?
Not since yesterday.